Hello, lovelies, and welcome back to my channel. So we have to talk about a few things because a few things have been happening for the last couple of weeks, and they have been happening in a medium that I adore, that I have studied, that I worship, called the theater. The theater, yes, the theater.
The theater, the theater. What's happened to the theater?
The theater. Yes, I know, right, Danny Kang? What are they doing to our precious theater child? So listen, I am a theater girly. I studied it in undergrad, even in grad school. I acted professionally for a while. Ooh, that was a different lifetime. I lived in New York City, and while I was there, I saw every single play that I could. Broadway, in somebody's basement, you name it, I was there. And I have always admired Patti LuPone and Audra McDonald because both are icons, award-winning. They are powerhouses of the theater. So imagine my surprise when Patti took a shot at Audra. What? Why? Girl, listen, my heart was broken, okay? I had to take a minute to talk about this, okay? Because it hurt my feelings. Now, this is a story of interest. Like I said, over the last couple of weeks, the internet has absolutely been ablaze about this issue. And, you know, I really, because I love the genre so much, you know, I have to break it down. And there's some lessons to be learned, of course. So we're going to get into all of the details, all right? But first, a little bit of a background on exactly how we got here. Now, last fall, the fall of 2024, in which many unfortunate things happened, Patti LuPone starred in a show called The Roommate, along with Mia Farrow. Now, this show shared a wall with another Broadway show called Hell's Kitchen. Hell's Kitchen is a Tony Award-winning musical that was created by Alicia Keys. And Patti apparently had a problem with some of the sound cues and asked for an adjustment because their music was bleeding through the walls of their show. Now, the sound team did respond. They did adjust a few of their cues. Patti sent them a thank you note and some flowers. But then a video circulated of Patti LuPone refusing to sign a Hell's Kitchen playbill because their show was too loud. And Kecia Lewis is one of the stars of the show Hell's Kitchen. She is also an acclaimed actress on Broadway. She has won her own Tony, actually, for her performance in Hell's Kitchen. She did take to respond to Miss LuPone and share some of her thoughts on just kind of how she believes that Patti navigated this situation. So let's take a look at a clip that she shared on her Instagram account, I think around November of 2024 last year.
I'm not signing a Hell's Kitchen. They're too loud.
Hi, my name is Kecia Lewis, and I am an actress currently performing in Hell's Kitchen on Broadway. This is an open letter to Miss Patti LuPone. I want to explain what a microaggression is. These are subtle, unintentional comments or actions that convey stereotypes, biases, or negative assumptions about someone based on their race. Microaggressions can seem harmless or minor, but can accumulate and cause significant stress or discomfort for the recipient. Examples include calling a Black show loud in a way that dismisses it. In our industry, language holds power and shapes perception, often in ways that we may not immediately realize. Referring to a predominantly Black Broadway show as loud can unintentionally reinforce harmful stereotypes, and it also feels dismissive of the artistry and the voices that are being celebrated on stage. Comments like these can be seen as racial microaggressions, which have a real impact on both artists and audiences. In conclusion, on Broadway, we are not just neighbors, Miss LuPone. We're a community that shares in each other's artistry and challenges. Respect and collaboration are what keep us thriving and inspire the next generation. It's important that we support each other's hard work on and off the stage. So let's lift each other up and show that every show on this street called Broadway deserves respect and celebration.
Now, at the time that Kecia posted this video expressing her thoughts, it did circulate within the Broadway community, but I don't think it got a ton of attention outside of that. But she had a lot of support. Namely, among her support was Miss Audra McDonald herself, who replied to her post using hearts and emojis. Okay, and And a lot of people, like I said, in the replies, they thought that Kecia's video was very thoughtful and respectful, even though she clearly had, very strong opinions just about how she thought Patti could have handled it better. And then she challenged her to look at the situation from her perspective and to be better about community and leadership within the community. Now we fast forward to May 2025, where an interview with Patti LuPone that she gave to Michael Schumann of The New Yorker, she describes her career, her highs and her lows, and she mentions, she's asked about, the issue that happened between the two shows. This interview, I do encourage people to read it because it really, really does get into depth about her career and her thoughts on a lot of things. And one thing that I found kind of interesting, which is kind of a side note, but like loosely related, is that in this interview, while they are talking, she actually stops the conversation to mention to a couple of ladies who are nearby as the interview is being conducted to ask them if they can keep it down. I mean, that's kind of funny because this all kind of started from a noise complaint. And like, honestly, I think Patti LuPone just thinks New York City is too noisy. And yeah, girlfriend, it is because it's New York City. Like, act like you've been here before. You know what New York is about. And yeah, maybe she's just annoyed by that. But like, so that's kind of a pattern. That's like a theme, which I get. But again, this kind of went a little bit too far because in the very last part of this interview, which again, y'all should read, she does get asked specifically about the incident with Kecia. And this is what she had to say. "Oh my God," LuPone said, balking, when I brought up the incident. "Here's the problem. She calls herself a veteran. Let's find out how many Broadway shows Kecia Lewis has done because she doesn't know what the fuck she's talking about." She Googled. "She's done 7. I've done 31. Don't call yourself a vet, bitch." The correct numbers are actually 10 and 28, but who's counting? She explained of the noise problem. "This is not unusual on Broadway. This happens all the time when walls are shared." Well, Patti, if it happens all the time, then why are you refusing to sign playbills because of the loudness, especially because they corrected it? Like, what are we even doing here? If it's so common, then why were you so offended by it? Because they did correct it. So it's just weird. It's weird behavior and it's excessive and it's not necessary. That fan didn't do anything to deserve that. Neither did the show. And Kecia has a point by saying that it is a microaggression to accuse an all-black show or mostly black show or brown and black show of being loud. Like you cannot live in this country and act like you don't understand what that implies. And then to say that to a fan in front of a group of fans while they're just trying to get your autograph, like that's too much. And actually, as much as I know that you like a good feud, you're actually better than that. And that's the whole point that Kecia was making, that you're better than that, or you should be, and the community deserves better than that. So let's try to do better than that. And maybe you didn't agree with her opinion. Okay, whatever, but at least you could have considered it. And I'm sorry, but calling her out of her name was completely out of line. Like, don't do that to another woman because we're supposed to be sisters in this thing, even though we may not all be from the same background. No. Women should do better when it comes to other women. And I know that being a veteran in this business, that I am sure that there are other women who probably did not treat you so appropriately, but why then turn around and do that to another actress? Like, we got to do better too. So this isn't just about racial microaggressions. This is like, hey, as women, like, let's show up for each other in a way that we wish that people did more for us. Let's change the game. Also, Kecia Lewis debuted on Broadway and Dreamgirls when she was 18 years old, okay? She has done 10 Broadway shows, and she has her own Tony now, as I mentioned. So she has earned her stripes, okay? And a Broadway performance isn't the only marker for who gets to chime in on matter of microaggressions anyway. This is an issue that affects everybody in the community, from the stagehands to the audience member on the second balcony in the last row. So yeah, let's get it together, okay? And it seemed like the whole theater community agreed with me, agreed with Kecia and others, because even people outside of the community, okay, particularly other actors, chimed in. Film actors, TV actors, stage actors, child, even Disney actors stood up in solidarity with Audra and Kecia. And why would they not? Now, what did she say about Audra? I'm glad you asked. Let's take a look. Now, when Michael mentions to her, reminded her that Audra McDonald replied to Kecia's post with supportive emojis. Patti LuPone said, "Exactly." And I thought, you should know better. That's typical of Audra. She's not a friend. She said that they had some sort of rift a while back, but Patti didn't want to elaborate on what the rift actually was. And then when Michael asked her what she thought of Audra McDonald's current production of Gypsy, because Audra is currently reprising her role that Patti LuPone is famous for. She did not originate the role in Gypsy. Many celebrated women of Broadway have played it, but she's very well known for it. She's one of the most recent kind of like highlights of the reprisals of this particular show. And Audra is reprising the role right now at pretty much an all-black cast on Broadway. And so when she's asked what she thinks of the production and of Audra, Patti LuPone stares at Michael in silence for 15 seconds and then turns to the window, sighs, and says, "Oh, what a beautiful day." Now, I'm all here for some drama, but not when the drama is bullshit. Like, what is this? What am I supposed to do with this, Patti LuPone? I love you both. I've admired you both, and you are taking shots at Audra for some reason that you won't even tell us, when usually you do not bite your tongue. So what is it, and why are you taking digs at this woman's performance? Like, that is just really, really odd. And when I read this, I just thought, yeah, this is kind of a travesty, and because they've worked together, you know, several times over the years. So I'm pretty sure that Audra will hear about this and she will kind of be taken aback. Not necessarily that Patti disagreed with her support of Kecia's comments, but like that she's taking this to a personal level.
Here today, there's a New Yorker piece. Patti LuPone says about you, Audra is not a friend. Friend with a D. I know there's a lot of back and forth. Were you surprised to hear that said about you from her? And I'm not trying to start a Broadway dust up here, but I'm wondering how you're processing.
I mean, I don't, if there's a rift between us, I don't know what it is. That's something that you'd have to ask Patti about. Mm-hmm. You know, I haven't seen her in about 11 years just because I've been busy just with life and stuff. So I don't know what rift she's talking about, but you'd have to ask her.
That's a lot. But before we get to my response to this clip, look at this woman. Like, I have to take a superficial moment to just gaze upon the beauty, okay, that is radiating off of this woman. Like, she looks like $1 billion. And the petty in me, and y'all are just gonna have to forgive it because God is not finished with me. And like, I don't know, I feel like I can be a little petty. When you are responding to negative comments that someone has made about you, and like your whole affect is, you know, that's unfortunate, but I'm just going to move forward anyway because I'm unbothered, and like, you know, blessings to her. This is how you do it. This is the look. She's radiating. She's wearing a color that just like makes her skin just pop and glow. Look at the glasses. And baby, the dangly earrings, okay, letting you know that you may be dangling, but I'm just fine. The hair being slayed to the gods, like, and then the look on the face of like, isn't that interesting? Like, this is how you are supposed to look when you are slaying somebody who tried it. So I appreciate the goddessness. You know what I mean? The light, the lesson. Thank you, Audra McDonald. And I know that you probably don't have petty bones in your body, but I do. So this is the way that I read it. Blessings, love. Okay, let's get back to the clip.
I haven't seen her in about 11 years just because I've been busy just with life and stuff. So I don't know what rift she's talking about, but you'd have to ask her.
Now, see, what strikes me about this interview, of which I believe every word, is that Audra seems genuinely put off by Patti's comments. Like, if a colleague of mine that I've worked with for years said, you know, hey, you know, we aren't friends, and, you know, I don't have a clue what I did to offend them, and then they're taking shots at my work and my work ethic, particularly regarding, you know, a show that we both, you know, did, I'm going to feel away, and it's not going to be the end of my world. You know, Audra is a strong woman, and I'm sure she kept right on moving along, you know, but it's still probably going to bother people because these are stars, they're celebrities, but they're also humans. Okay. And I think that it's safe to say that she has respect for what Patti has contributed to this genre. So it's never going to kind of sit well when something like this happens, like regardless of, how wrong Patti was with her words, particularly towards Kecia, and her response in that interview. But still, it's just like, what are you doing? And why are you taking this to a personal place? And that's kind of the interesting thing about, microaggressions and just kind of this whole situation is that I think, microaggressions are so common that people do not, like, I've gotten to a point with microaggressions that I just expect them, even from the unlikeliest of sources, and they should always be called out, but it gets exhausting. And that's why Kecia should be applauded for taking the time to be thoughtful about her response. She really, really was diligent, and you can watch that video and you can see that she is really thinking about what she's saying, and she wants her words to be taken seriously, but she is trying to educate, but they happen so frequently. I mean, this is a micro, but it stings. So once enough of them are accumulated, you go through a bit of wondering, like, is it even worth the discussion? Because people tend to close up, the moment that you bring them up. And it's like they automatically see it as you calling them racist when at the base of it, you are just asking them to think before they speak. And you're trying to teach them, which is the ultimate work of being an ally. Allyship, as I have said before, is never done. Not for any of us. I have many friends in the LGBTQ community, and while I am an ally, I can never assume that I know the beginning and the end of their struggles. I have to always keep my ear open to what they see as offensive so I can keep learning. Like, I can never assume that I know everything about what they go through, because while I understand the feeling of marginalization and discrimination, their exact experience is not my own. So that's a simple concept, right? So, Patti, as a woman and a powerhouse force within the theatrical community, should be able to understand how hard it is for a woman out there, but not necessarily a Black woman. And that is the whole damn point about intersectionality, okay? And now when it comes to Audra, it just seems like she really clammed up because she was offended that Audra was siding with Kecia. Again, because she's not even considering what Kecia is saying. She just totally dismissed her words when she really should have taken them in and listened to them. You sided with her over me and we've worked together. Like, she got offensive about it. And again, that is often what people do when you point out microaggressions. And no one has to be racist to commit a microaggression, okay? That you don't, okay? A lot of people do it, and it's a subconscious thing sometimes. So when it's pointed out, the point is not to take offense to it immediately. If someone is your friend or you genuinely respect them, listen to what they are saying and stop taking it as a attack on your character, because again, we all continue to learn within the context of allyship, period. That is just what it is. And so if you have learned enough things in your life to be considered a teacher in any aspect, then you should know that the best teachers are the best students. So you're always learning, baby, as long as there's breath in your body. And Patti LuPone is a 76-year-old icon. So I know that sometimes it can be harder to learn as we get older because we have learned our own lessons at that point. But baby, there's still good times to be had, Miss Clarice. There are still things to learn in this world. And the Broadway community agreed. They wrote an open letter about this situation, calling out abuses within the community, how they all have to commit to treating each other better. And they even demanded that the American Theater and the Broadway League establish a protocol for greater accountability moving forward. 500 people within the theater community, actors and non-actors, signed this letter. So Patti kind of had to respond because at this point, the moment called for it. And so I expected a response, but I did not quite expect the apology that she gave. And I would like to read it in its entirety now. For as long as I have worked in the theater, I have spoken my mind and never apologized. That is changing today. I am deeply sorry for the words I used during the New Yorker interview, particularly about Kecia Lewis, which were demeaning and disrespectful. I regret my flippant and emotional responses during this interview, which were inappropriate, and I am devastated that my behavior has offended others and has run counter to what we hold dear in this community. I hope to have the chance to speak to Audra and Kecia personally to offer my sincere apologies. I wholeheartedly agree with everything that was written in the open letter shared yesterday. From middle school drama clubs to professional stages, theater has always been about lifting each other up and welcoming those who feel they don't belong anywhere else. I made a mistake. I take full responsibility for it, and I am committed to making this right. Our entire theater community deserves better. Patti LuPone. Now, even I have to admit, that's a good statement, okay? This is a good statement. It covers everything in terms of a starting point of a conversation, right? She did own it, and now we have to hope that she means it. And if she really does mean it, then I hope that Audra and Kecia take her up on her offer to speak, because there's an opportunity here to make this a fuller teachable moment. Now, I completely understand if neither Audra or Kecia or one of the other does not want to speak further, because again, with Audra, she made this personal, and with Kecia, she absolutely insulted her. And there's no excuse for that. It is unacceptable. But here's Patti saying, I recognize that it's unacceptable. And again, if she really means it, then this would be just a great moment, for them to be able to come together. And I would love, personally, to see women lead in this way, because I admire all of them again, and it just these powerhouses could really show a lesson that I think would extend far beyond the theater community. And so that's what I hope for. Call me an optimist. You can call me naive if you want to, but I do think that that's possible. And again, it's going to be up to Kecia and Audra, depending on how they respond. And I respect whatever it is they decide to do. Now, I was surprised that Patti apologized, because I have never known her to apologize. And this is a woman who starts many feuds, okay? Well, not necessarily starts them all the time, but she is no stranger to feuds. Let's just say that. She has beef with Kevin Kline. She made comments about, I think in this last New Yorker interview, she absolutely called Madonna, a movie killer when she did Evita, which is another role that Patti LuPone is famous for. And she had issues with Glenn Close and Andrew Lloyd Webber, and their feuds are actually tied into the same feud. In the early 90s, Patti LuPone was cast as Norma in the London production of Andrew Lloyd Webber's adaptation of Sunset Boulevard. Now, at the same time that this show was going on in London, the play was going on in Los Angeles, okay? And Glenn Close was starring as Norma. Now, Andrew Lloyd Webber or somebody decided that they wanted Glenn Close to open the Broadway show. But the problem was that they had already contracted Patti LuPone to open the Broadway show. And so when the swap was made, Patti got pissed. She later sued them for breach of contract. She won, and she took some of the winnings from her settlement and built a pool on her Connecticut property and called the pool the Andrew Lloyd Webber pool. Now, that's just funny. I don't care who you are. You have to appreciate the dedication to the Patti. I know I do. Every time I think of that story, I laugh my behind off, because it is because I live for moments like that. And there's times when, Patti can be fun. But this was not fun. Microaggressions are never fun, nor are they funny. They really do have real world impact. They really do drive you crazy, and they are hurtful. So I want people to understand this, because I think that sometimes people think that folks are overreacting, when they're responding to things, or you're too sensitive. And that is really not the case. Plus, I saw people online, quite a few people actually, saying things like, well, Patti's comments were just bitchy. Again, microaggressions, is not, that's not a mood change. Okay. That is an offense. And it is important to note the difference. Also, I saw people, using that, diminishing the microaggression and using that as an excuse to, to deflect to another issue within the Broadway community. And that is also problematic, and it is reductive, because when we're talking about these issues of microaggressions, first of all, listen to the community that is affected, and it's fine to focus on that issue. Yes, there are tons of issues in the world, but it's fine that we focus on this one before you deflect to others and act as if that the community is not doing its work at all, or that they chose the wrong issue in this case to proceed with, or that they're not prioritizing. I mean, that's just ridiculous. And like I said, I want to make this point because I saw people, arguing about this or debating this online, and, the conversation really just started to go left. And, as a Black woman, I do not appreciate this. It's like, try not to commit your own microaggressions while you are, trying to diminish what Patti LuPone actually did as a microaggression. All right, cool. And now that all of that is behind us, I would be remiss to end this video without talking about the fabulousness that is Miss Audra McDonald, because she really is her, and we have to get into all of the reasons why. Also, one really beautiful thing that came out of all of this negativity is that so many people online, they rushed together absolutely to defend Audra and Kecia, but they also reinforced their importance and their impact. And it was really, really wonderful to see Kecia get her flowers and to see Audra be celebrated in this moment, because she is so deserving of it. And so that's why I want to talk about her. Audra was born in July 1970 in West Germany to American parents. Her father was stationed with the U.S. Army at the time. Now, she was raised in Fresno, California, and she went to Theodore Roosevelt High School, and she eventually graduated from Juilliard. Yes, that Juilliard. Now, I don't have to tell you how difficult it must have been for a young Black woman to persevere in this industry in the 80s and the 90s, but persevere she did. She has received critical acclaim for performances in shows like Carousel and Porgy and Bess and Ragtime, a performance that I was blessed to see in person. And oh my God, that woman is a wonder. She also starred in Lady Day at Emerson's Bar and Grill. And in addition to her 6 Tonys, for which she has earned the most of any actor, period, and the only to do so in 4 different acting categories, go girl. She has 2 Grammys, an Emmy. She has received the National Medal of the Arts in 2016, and she was inducted into the American Theater Hall of Fame in 2017. And while her achievements are admirable, I have to say that what compels me the most about Audra is the conviction in her craft, the light that she carries whenever she is engaged in the profession that she truly holds dear.
Somewhere over the rainbow, bluebirds fly. Birds fly over the rainbow. Why then, oh, why can't I? If happy little bluebirds fly beyond the rainbow, why, oh, why can't I?
Isn't she lovely? I mean, come on. Do you not have chills, like full body chills right now? She is so everything. And now we have to talk a bit about Gypsy, because it's very interesting, kind of given what this play is about, that this sort of kerfuffle kind of happened around this time. Now, Gypsy is a story that is set in the 1920s and the 30s. And it's about a mother and her two daughters. And the mother, Rose, which is the character that Audra McDonald plays, she is a momager. She is like a show business manager. You know, they are touring the vaudeville circuit, you know, of the day. And she pushes her daughters to become stars in extreme and really uncomfortable ways to watch. And she's very aggressive and even monstrous in certain ways. But there's a real kind of vulnerability to her because she's had a hard life. And she really just wants her girls to be successful. But you know, she pushes too hard and she just has a really hard view of the world. So Audra has absolutely, you know, kind of tapped into her own motherhood, you know, with this show. And she actually gave an interview where she addressed that specifically. I can't carry my real daughters on stage with me because the way my character Rose mothers is a very different way than I mother my daughters, McDonald says. But I carry the depth of motherhood on stage with me because I know what that is. And I carry the depth of mothering daughters on stage with me. And I carry the depth of mothering Black daughters on stage with me for sure. Now, Audra could clearly connect to Rose's desire for her daughters to be successful, being a wife and a mother of two. And that's a beautiful thing, which she notes. But she also brings, you know, different experiences to the role. Like, that's kind of the whole point. And it's important to note because this role, the role of Rose, is an iconic role in an iconic show. And sometimes when so many people, especially famous actresses, have played in a particular show and the show is beloved and it has a long history, people get attached to what they think the show is supposed to be, which is understandable. But we should be able to make room for different interpretations or different versions, or, you know, the way that someone vocally or audibly or verbally, how they interpret the words, right? If the show is so great, which I believe that it is, I mean, it is said to be one of the best American musicals to exist ever, then it should be able to live up to the greatness of timelessness, okay? And we should be able to interpret it in multiple ways and using kind of the diversity of our experiences, which are lovely. And when you think about the fact that this play was set in the 20s and the 30s, and that the first time that we meet Rose is in 1959. I mean, just think of how women were living then and as opposed to how we're living now. And I'm sure a lot of people feel like we are being regressed right now because there's a lot going on in the world that is discouraging. But we have still evolved. And Audra playing Rose as the first Black woman to do so is very important. You know, it's significant. And that's kind of why I didn't care for Patti's dismissal kind of the production in that interview, because she knows that it's important to the legacy of the show and she knows why it's important. So it you know, it hit me a little bit differently. And we have to, again, recognize, you know, what we're saying and what we're doing, because we want to make sure that we're honoring stories like these. And you know, again, when you think of everything that has kind of happened and why, you know, this story is important, it's also that it's important that it's being told right now, given everything that is going on right now. So also one such female pioneer visited this year's production of Gypsy. And this is how her visit impacted Audra's performance that night.
Kamala Harris
Yes.
Came to see it.
Yes.
And you said that the performance you gave that night was different and special.
Well, let me tell you why. It was, you know, obviously it was in January, so this was after the election. I don't like knowing who's in the audience. I don't like knowing because I don't want to think about what they're thinking about you the same way, right? Right, we're the same way. We don't want to know. We want to do our show.
Yeah.
And so I didn't know that she was there. They knew not to tell me, but was dumb enough to check my phone at intermission, and a friend of mine said, "Oh my God, are you having so much fun with Kamala in the audience?" I was like, "What?" So what that did do, when I got to Rose's turn, and there's the line where she says, "Will someone tell me, when is it my turn? Don't I get a dream for myself? Starting now, it's gonna be my turn." And I don't think I kind of felt like the earth open up from beneath my feet all the way to the top of my head. I don't think I've ever sung the song as loudly as I did, or have it come from such an emotional place.
You were singing for both of you.
I was for more than all of us.
I mean, for, at that moment.
For all of us.
All of us.
Really.
Wow. What a wonderful moment. And I can tell you, as someone who has performed, I've sung, I have acted, to have a moment like that where, that something that you're doing, that your performance can be impactful, and to be able to kind of dig into, the significance, to find deeper meaning in what you're trying to convey. There is nothing that feels like more alive than that, especially on a stage, because the thing that makes theater so special is that it is instant gratification, and you're right there. People are not watching you on a screen. They're in a room with you, and that entire room is one living, breathing organism. Everything that happens in that room affects something else that happens in that room. And as a performer, when you're on a stage and it's live, you're taking everything that happens and you are adding it to what you do. And yes, there's a protocol, there's an order, you learn your lines. Pretty much the same thing happens every night, but there's always something a little bit different. And that's the joy of live theater. So hearing her say that the ground opened up, that's just always going to be something that she remembers, and hopefully that Kamala remembers. And I bet you she was able to feel that, which is, again, the beauty of theater. And I think that there are a lot of talented people in this world, and talent is admirable, but it is the humanity of artists that compel me the most. And I think that when we talk about artists, we should constantly talk about their humanity, so that we're not just doing so when they do something that we disapprove of. We want to kind of constantly be celebrating them. And that's not to put them on a pedestal, but is, again, to note their humanity. So with that said, I want to close this video by inviting everybody to tune into the Tony Awards this Sunday. It's going to air at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I think it's going to be a great show. Audra is nominated for yet another Tony Award, and awards aren't everything. If she doesn't win, it's fine. It's still a win. She is nominated with four other fabulous ladies. So it's going to be a good show no matter what. And I will be tuned in. And I think that supporting her, supporting these other women that are nominated, supporting the community is important, because they really did show up and they did the right thing in this instance. They supported Kecia, they supported Audra, and they called out a vet of this industry. They held her accountable, and she held herself accountable. So to me, yes, I'm optimistic, but to me, we're doing good. We did good this time, and we will see how the situation continues to evolve. But I think this was a good thing. And if you need another reason to watch the Tonys, the original cast of Hamilton will be performing. Like, it's go time. Like, we are in there. It is going to be lit. And Patti will be watching herself, okay? She absolutely will be watching the Tonys on Sunday. So I know some of you are going to watch this video and think that I took it way too easy on Miss Patti LuPone. And that's fine, because we all have our opinions. But when I first heard about this, I was pissed. Okay, I was very angry. And when I get angry, I am like the Hulk. Okay, I'm usually a very patient person. It takes a lot to upset me. So when I get upset, watch out. But I told myself that if I responded to this officially on my channel, that I wanted to try to invoke my own humanity and how I looked at the situation and hold Patti accountable, but not necessarily demonize her. And the thing is, if she proves me wrong, that I shouldn't have extended, some grace to her, and that, she did mean what she said and she meant it offensively, or that she wasn't serious about getting with these ladies to really, truly apologize to them, which frankly, they deserve, okay, a real apology. apology, not a public one, in a statement, and that will be up to them to decide. Again, their discretion, respect their decision. But if she's not serious about that, I can always go further. Okay, in my reflection, I can always, come back and say, hey, I was wrong, and she absolutely deserves to get read. So let me gather her really quickly. Enough people have done that anyway, but yeah, let me add to the pile. Because I am multi-talented, I can be empathetic, and then I can also curse you out. We can do both, okay? But I thought it was important to, just to look at the whole scope of things. So I hope you all appreciated my perspective, even if you may not have agreed with some of it. I hope that you were able to appreciate it, because that's what I'm trying to do here on this channel, is lead with my own empathy and humanity while I kind of dissect some of these issues that come up, in our culture, in our society. And so with that said, thank you so much for watching. I really had fun with this video, talking about the theater, the community that I love. And so I appreciate everybody's support, and I appreciate you all for watching. And until we speak again, get you some good grub and take good care. Bye.